I'm Maggie Hamilton, the editor of Choir and Organ magazine. Choir and Organ launched its new music series 15 years ago to encourage young composers to write for choirs or for the organ as a solo instrument. Every year we commission 6 pieces of music, and since 2010, we've run the series with performing partners. The partners decide what sort of music they want, and then we commission accordingly, and then the partners give the premieres. I've come today to the Church of St Anne and St Agnes in the heart of London, one of many churches in the city that were designed by Sir Christopher Wren in the 17th century. The church is the home of the VOCES8 Foundation, and I'm delighted to be able to welcome them as our new music partners for 2022. And I'm sitting here with Paul Smith and Barney Smith, who are going to be introducing the work of VOCES8 and the Foundation. So can I turn first of all to Paul?
It's always wise to come to the oldest brother first, I think.
Well, I mean, anybody walking past this church would have absolutely no idea of the things that are going on inside it. So perhaps you could say what does happen here.
For sure. So as you've said, this is a beautiful Christopher Wren church, and as the VOCES8 Foundation, we were very lucky about 8 years ago to start a partnership with the Diocese of London to take over the building, in effect, and to run it as a centre for choral outreach, for choral music. So over the last 8 years, we've got heating, lighting, even toilets now. It's very exciting. And pre-COVID, this space would have been used regularly for workshops, for concerts, for all sorts of different things, involving lots of city schools coming in and working with either VOCES8 or Apollo 5, our 2 ensembles. We used to do lots of recording here as well. Unfortunately, of course, COVID has come along in the last couple of years. Yeah. And so this space has actually now become for us a real sanctuary in a genuine sense. In fact, we've turned it into a recording studio and a broadcasting studio. And so for the last 18 months now, we've been running an online series called Live from London, which has seen, I think, arguably, or maybe not even arguably, some of the finest vocal groups, certainly in the country and possibly the world, coming in here, working with us and giving live concerts, which we've been filming, capturing, and then sharing with the world. So in the last year and a half, I think we've now hosted 57 different concerts as part of the series, which has been amazing. Many, many famous names have come through, and for us with Apollo 5, and VOCES8, it's been a place that we could come, rehearse and record and actually make music that we could continue to share with the world in what obviously has been an impossible time for the arts.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
We're very happy to be here, and we're delighted to be in partnership with Choir and Organ.
Barney, VOCES8 is just one of the top vocal ensembles in the UK. And what's the relationship between VOCES8 and Apollo 5?
Well, the simplest way to put it is that we're brother and sister. We belong to the same foundation. So when Paul and I founded the group 16 years ago,
We are getting a bit older.
we, as well as creating a performance ensemble, VOCES8, we also wanted to take our work into the community. Now, we're big believers in how important music is to creating a sense of community, but also to helping the development of young people especially, and of course the enjoyment for adults that they get from their singing. So we created our foundation, and I think probably about 5 years later, we realized there was a little bit too much work for VOCES8 to be able to handle, and we were missing out on opportunities actually because of that. So we created a second ensemble, Apollo 5, and I'm thrilled to say that we're now kind of too busy again. So who knows what will happen after this? We have things like our scholarship schemes and all those sorts of people going out. But yes, in essence, we are brother and sister.
And what was it that attracted you to coming into a new music partnership with choir and organ?
Good question.
When you've got so much to do already.
Well, look, I mean, I think that the term that we use with all of our work is legacy. It's one thing going in and singing a great concert, but unless you leave something behind, something that's going to make a difference, then, arguably there's only so much point to going in the first place. And that's a real mantra of our education work, but also our performance work. And I think it's a little bit harder in the realms of music performance to create that legacy just by singing concerts. So commissioning and working with new music, finding new ways to interact with audiences is a hugely important part of our work. And so, of course, being involved in an exciting commissioning program is absolutely ideal.
And I think this project in particular fits really well with the idea of supporting the arts in this time. We've mentioned that we do a lot of outreach work. We have amazing composers who've been part of our composer in residence scheme in the past few years. Roxana Panufnik is our current composer in residence. Previously, we've had Jonathan Dove, Ollie Yelo, some world-class names. But to have that opportunity to partner with you to encourage some of the rising stars in the compositional world, as well as the rising stars that Barney alluded to in our scholarship program from the performance side of things, I think is really, really important. And partnership always helps us achieve more and stronger and better things. So to work with choir and organ, I think will be a real pleasure.
And what is the scholarship program that you mentioned?
There we go. Okay. We said enough and it happens. Actually, when we started VOCES8, it was a UK-based foundation. About 5 years ago, we also started a US foundation. So we have a charity here, we have a charity in America, and in both countries, we've set up a scheme called the VOCES8 Scholars. So that's for aspiring young professionals. We give out 8 scholarships in the UK and up to 12 in the US. And that's an opportunity for them to come work with us, learn from us, take to the stage with us, be in a recording environment with us, and also crucially to learn how we approach our outreach work, so that hopefully after a year as a scholar, we would have 8 aspiring young professionals who are equipped and feel comfortable on stage and understand how VOCES8 works as a collaborative ensemble, but also who understand the mission of the foundation and how they might take that out into their communities in the years to follow. So it's been a tough year, and we've been working online on Zoom and all these kind of things to make sure it's possible, but I'm thrilled that later this month, the next season is going to include a proper live experience for the scholars. So they're going to be working with us for a week at the end of September, and then over in America, we're getting started in Texas in a couple of weeks as well.
Might I add just one thought to Paul's very comprehensive answer?
Oh, thanks, bud.
And that's that I think one thing we have noticed in the 15, 16 years that we've been working is that often people get to the end of their studies and they arrive at almost what feels like a T-junction. It's like one way is success and the other way is, oh, I haven't got any work. And I think what we're trying to do is offer some support and take that away from a T-junction and actually make it a multi-forked road to try and help these young professionals who are all individual and all different and all come with different skill sets actually find their place in an industry which isn't just performance or bust. And I think sometimes we do create that T-junction and we need to get rid of it. So a big part of the program is encouraging them, as Paul has said, across a broad range of activities so that they can find actually which way they might go. And then beyond that, we try to support them and offer them work in those directions as well. It's really exciting, just like these composers. New people, new things, new ideas, new talent. It's great.
And you also work with children in your outreach work, don't you?
Yes,
So
the youngest tends to be 3 or 4 in a year, age 3 or 4. The oldest tends to be 83 or 84. But we really do work with everybody. Paul can speak at length about the way that we try to get involved in school communities. I think probably as an organisation, we are very, very keen that music plays an important part in young people's lives, because we, as an arts community, are aware of how being involved in creative arts is incredible for the development across so many levels for young people, whether that be just developing a voice so that they feel confident to express themselves, or whether that be the fact that they're involved in the arts is helping their cross-curricular studies. Whatever it is, we want music to be in the classroom. And we all know it's well documented in a world where everything is judged on results. Trying to get a strict result from the arts is very difficult. So then quantifying it into a government spending plan or whatever it is becomes even harder. And we're there to lobby, we're there to lead, we're there to support. And our work is extensive. And if I let Paul now jump in on this answer, then this interview will double in length. So off you go.
Yeah, I talk for months about this kind of stuff. As you can hear from Barney, I think we're very passionate about the role that we have and the importance of music education. We were lucky when we were younger to be choristers at Westminster Abbey, so we feel like we have had the best possible music experience at what was a crucial age for development into a career. So in terms of the work that we're doing, Barney spoke eloquently as always, but just to give you a couple of examples, here in the city around us, we're working with some of the students from schools who really don't have any music happening. We're coaching teachers how to feel confident to lead singing in a classroom. We're supporting them through that, and we've actually been doing a piece of research called Sing Every Day, which came out earlier this year, I think, in partnership with the Institute of Education, which has shown the impact of the long-term support that can have. And if you're thinking about making a difference to students' lives, doing it at that early age and getting them used to singing when they're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's a critical period. We do a lot of work with teenagers, but in many ways, you can miss the boat. And so our work with teenagers, just to jump into that a little bit, one of our key programs, which I love, I adore, is called the Young Leaders Program. So we teach teenagers not how to sing, but how to feel confident to do what we do in a workshop setting. So that includes singing, but it also includes all sorts of leadership skills. We then take them into local primary schools, and it's their responsibility to get the primary school children making music. And it is an absolute joy to witness the interaction between teenagers and younger students. For us, there's huge benefits in the non-musical spheres of things. But one of the other key things that we're trying to do with that program is to bridge the gap between leaving primary school and starting secondary school, which is often a critical moment where students lose that enthusiasm that they have for singing. So Barney's, we've talked about the Scholars Program at the top of our sort of journey of music, if you like. Then we've got our Young Leaders Program, and then our work in schools, encouraging teachers in particular to feel confident and to enjoy singing in the classroom. So there's lots to do, and we try to, in effect, be a model of best practice in lots of different ways so people can learn from us, and then hopefully take those ideas and put them into their own projects in other parts of the world.
And then it's not just what you do, but you're now producing books about singing as well, aren't you?
Yes.
I believe.
We must mention Edition Peters, or we'll be in a lot of trouble. We're thrilled, actually. Robin Tyson, who's our general manager, has a number of different hats. In one of his hats, he is the head of choral publishing for Edition Peters. So alongside this program with choir and organ, for the last few years, we've been beginning to publish books which, a bit like the Digital Academy, range from incredibly challenging arrangements that we've performed and have had written for us over the years, or new compositions by people like Jonathan Dove and Roxana. But then also, I wrote a book called The VOCES8 Method a few years ago, which is based around the research that's been done into what types of music making have a positive impact on the brain for learning in different areas. And that's lots of games, lots of warm-ups, if you like, if you went to a choir normally.
Yeah,
So we published that as well. I'm thrilled to say it's been translated into 4 languages now.
Oh.
And
Which ones?
it's in, well, English, German, French, and Japanese. And so it's being used in thousands of schools around the world, which makes me very happy. I got an Instagram message yesterday, in fact, from someone in Gallup, New Mexico. Father Matthew, I think his name was, involved in a Catholic school out there, who said he'd come across the method and his kids were loving it, and they just got through chapter 2. So
it's further than we've got, I think.
I think it is further than you've got, Barn. Yeah.
Fantastic. Pleasure. We're really looking forward to this year. It's going to be very exciting. And looking forward to the premieres, and we hope actually that everybody will come to hear the premieres live.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. That would be excellent.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you both very much.
Pleasure.
Our new music section has its own editor who liaises between the performers and the composer, and who interviews the composer for the magazine. From the start, this was Shirley Ratcliffe, and she was succeeded at the beginning of 2021 by Matthew Power. Matthew is a composer, organist, and choir director, and was my predecessor as the editor of Choir and Organ, so nobody could be better placed to do this job than he. Matthew is now going to introduce our first composer for 2022, the Indian-American composer Shruthi Rajasekar.
The first of our new music composers is Shruthi Rajasekar, who lives in Minnesota in the Midwestern United States. I'm connecting with her over the internet so that we can talk about her musical background and about the choral piece she's written for choir and organ. Shruthi, you first experienced music by immersing yourself in the study of Carnatic singing, which you've sometimes combined with Western-style vocal harmonies. Can you tell us about how the traditions differ and how they can be brought together?
Yes, absolutely. So in many ways, especially at a theoretical level, our two systems have some things in common. So both organize themselves essentially as sort of 12-tone systems. We do the same in Indian music. We don't specifically name quarter tones or any smaller intervals than that. What we do have, though, in addition to sort of 12 semitones, is this journey between notes. That's what my mother's guru used to call it, that Indian music is all of the music that happens between notes. And I think we could agree that that's what happens in maybe all kinds of music, is the journey that we make, the emotions that we convey, the story that we tell through the notes, rather than just the notes themselves. But in Indian music, that's meant quite literally. So, there are multiple journeys prescribed between two semitones, for example, or any interval that we're discussing. And in any given raga, that might be one particular journey, or there might be several, but there's an idiom to it. So for example, in the raga Shankarabharanam, between the third and fourth scale degree, there's a plethora of things that can happen. And on paper, Shankarabharanam has the notes of the major scale. But sa re ga ma, between ga and ma, ga ma, ga ma, there's so much that can happen in those, just in those 2 minutes.
Yes, immediately that sound world to me sounds entirely non-Western, but at the same time I can imagine it coalescing with a Western harmony as well, perhaps underneath it. I want to turn to the piece that you've written for choir and organ, the first of our 2022 new music series. You've chosen a text, a very simple text, by Christina Rossetti, who has seen the wind. And I wonder where the musical inspiration came from for this piece and how you settled on this particular poem.
I love this poem, and I loved it for its simplicity, but so much truth packed into essentially, just a couple lines, what is, for all practical purposes, a nursery rhyme for children. I think a lot of wisdom lives in those kinds of sources anyway. For me, the one of the musical themes of this piece actually came from a dream that I had several years ago, where this motif came to me, and then I suddenly woke up, and it was still lingering in my head. And since we last spoke, I've been thinking about that a lot too. You know, why that dream, why that motif in this piece? I think the way the motif appears in the piece is very much like a person trying to recall a dream, which is this idea of, you know, it comes and half remembered, and then sort of, you know, makes its appearance when you're least expecting it. But I think the idea of dreams themselves also enter into a mystical, spiritual world. I know in my religion and in sort of other spiritualities practiced that I'm familiar with, there's this tradition sometimes of being visited by the divine in dreams, which can be sort of both terrifying and extremely exciting, exhilarating, really, that this idea that this divinity or something mysterious, something supernatural lives within us. So it could be a Jane Eyre moment in a way, you know, where she hears that, you know, voice when she's in the moors calling her name, you know, that kind of supernatural. Or it could be the peace of knowing that that lives within all of us, within our world, is watching over us, whatever that spirit may be. And I think that's why I couldn't let go of that motif so many years ago, but also I never said it until this moment, so that it really presented itself with this particular text.
Well, I'm very glad that moment finally came, and we look forward to hearing your music very soon. Shruthi Rajasekar, thank you very much for joining us today. There will be a more in-depth interview with Shruthi in the January issue of Choir and Organ, and also a link to download the score of her choral piece. We are excited to partner with the VOCES8 Foundation throughout 2022, and we look forward to the new music that partnership will create. We hope that you will join us on that musical journey.
We hope you've enjoyed hearing about Choir and Organ's new music series, and you can read all about VOCES8 Foundation in our December issue. And then do follow the composers through the whole of 2022 in our magazine and online. And you'd be extremely welcome to come to the premieres as well. We hope to see you there.
Danny's, the little town too. Or wind up in Julie's, whatever.